Well, ladies and gentlemen, I have the pleasure of introducing you today a gentleman by the name of Mr. Corey Muhammad, Platinum Executive Director, Network Vice President, six-figure earner, a gentleman who's built a long-term business. And without further ado, I'd like to bring him onto the call, Mr. Corey Muhammad. How's it going, sir?
All right, it's going incredible, man. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. I'm so glad to have you.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you, and I appreciate all the incredible leadership. Florida's doing absolutely great. So, big hats off to all of the Florida leadership, Daniel Gonzalez, and everyone that's helping make Florida do what it do.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. You get some kudo points. So listen, I just wanted to get right into it because when I've done research on some of your background, I got really excited because I think it speaks to a lot of the people that watch this presentation, especially me, even. And so I wanted to go ahead and ask you. Let's just get started right here. How did you get started in Legal Shield?
Well, I was actually a part of another company that Legal Shield was now called Legal Shield bought out. And when I saw it, the service made so much sense. I got involved with the service right away, and I got got involved with the business right away. So actually, it kind of found me more so than me finding it. I was already a student of the industry, and when I saw it, I knew there was something I wanted to be a part of.
So wait, okay. Here's my question, right? So you get started, and some people may know, may not know, but you were a single dad, right? And so you had two kids there, right? And you're doing this all by yourself, demanding schedule. How does somebody go from that space? Because we get so many objections. Now I don't have the time, I don't have the income, I don't have anything. You actually got into this industry with all of that. And how did you make that transition? What spoke to you? What allowed you to say, I can do this. I could balance all of that. What did that for you?
Jim Rohn talks about it. Many of us know who Jim Rohn is, business philosopher. I mean, so many people love to hear Jim Rohn's trainings. And when I got in this industry, being a student of Jim Rohn and listening to Jim Rohn, but Jim Rohn talks about this thing called a day of disgust. And a day of disgust, when that comes, that's something that happens to you that just makes you, make something change in your life. And so for me, when I was a single dad, two beautiful children, and I remember I worked at the local phone company, and one of my children had a play at school. And so I asked for time to get off to be able to go to the play. And then my supervisor told me no. And I didn't like the feeling of being a grown man asking another grown person, can I get time off to go see my child? So that was one of the things that was a day of disgust. Now, that's not it. There was a lot of bills at the time. I was living check to check, all of that. And so the biggest thing for me is the desire. I was looking for change. And a good friend of mine helped me get introduced to this, but I was really looking for change, though.
So, okay, so you were looking. So that's the difference make. Okay. Well, how did you
looking? Yeah, I want to say I was looking, but I wasn't necessarily looking for this. I just knew I was looking for something that was going to cause me to change the current realities that I had in my life.
That is nice. That is nice. I hope everybody's right. That is amazing. That is the big point there. Okay. So, Corey, let me ask you another question. How did you prioritize your time? I mean, I've heard so many good things about you, right? Upstanding individual, great dad. I mean, just a good man. How did you prioritize your time, so you could meet the needs of your family and the needs of your business and your job all at the same time until you were ready to transition? Like, how did you do that?
Well, I mean, I like to be able to say, well, I had it all laid out and I did this, but that wouldn't be the truth. I mean, it wouldn't be the truth. When I started, one of the things I did do a little differently when I got started with this on my lunch breaks. I remember because I worked in a call center, and most people would take their lunch break and they would actually, eat lunch like most people do during a lunch break. And when you're in a stressful environment like a call center, they even had like a sofa in this special room because they know you had to decompress when you're on the phones like that. They like to have people have a chance to decompress. But I didn't eat on my lunch break. That's not what I did. I mean, I literally chose my lunch break time to be able to do the follow-up calls, to make the calls. Wow. Sometimes I had to work split shifts, meaning you go in for a few hours, get off, and then you had to go back. Now, it just so happens when you talk about how did I prioritize everything, I didn't really have some laid out elaborate schedule, but I did what was necessary to be able to accomplish the goals that I had at that time. Now, sometimes that meant, staying a little bit longer at an appointment. Sometimes that meant looking at, see if my mother or someone else can help me with the children that day. It just really meant doing whatever needed to be. And I know that sounds so cliche-ish, but I wasn't personally developed enough at that time to be able to say, well, I planned every day the night before. And because I didn't really do this. Sometimes it felt like I was just in a whirlwind, but I knew I had a goal to accomplish and I was willing to do what it was going to take to get the goal done. And my leadership team taught me about the importance of presentation. So I had a certain goal of amount of presentations getting in front of people, to be able to share, because I was taught memberships for cash, recruiting for wealth, and I needed cash at the time, so I did memberships along with focusing on the recruiting piece. But back over to you.
Corey, that's amazing. And I think that's refreshing because a lot of us do this, part-time, and some full-time. But to hear you say, hey, I didn't have it all figured out. I just did what I needed to do until I got there, until I became developed enough to make the changes. I really appreciate your honesty on that. That's amazing. Okay. Well, listen, Mr. Muhammad, you had some quick success, right? You did what most could not do in 2 years and 3 months, per what you told me, right? You hit the 6-figure ring.
Yes.
Right. So, and before that, obviously, you achieved executive director position. What was that like to go executive director the first time and then eventually get the 6-figure ring? What was that like, and what does that look like? Based on your background and what you did.
Man, I'm going to date myself and sound old saying this, but I went executive director for the first. I started in September of 1998. First of all.
Okay.
I started in September of 1998, and I went executive director. The very first time I went was December of 1999. Okay. So that was the very first year. And I want to kind of, many of us may or may not know this, but when 1999 went to the year 2000, there was this whole Y2K thing. Is the world going to end? All that kind of stuff like that. So I went ED under that because a lot of people was wondering what was going to happen. It was in December that I, went executive director. And back then, and still today, I think we just promoted executive director in such a way to where, and it was just a destination that you had to achieve. So I was a very euphoric feeling. I was excited about it. I did not do it on my own. Of course, we all know that you have to have team, and the requirements were a little different then. So it really wasn't just me going executive director. I was a part of an organization that talked about the importance of creating executive director teams. And so the team and I went on the ED run. I got to be the one recognized for it, but the team and I went on the ED run, and again, that was in December of 1999. By the year 2001, early 2001, I was blessed to develop the 6-figure ring. It took me 13 months to go ED, 2 years and 3 months to get the ring. And since I was asked what's the highest level I've achieved, because I want to make sure I'm completely integrity and honest, the highest level has been platinum jacket earner. That's not my current level, but that's the highest level that I been blessed to achieve in Legal Shield. And so how did all of that happen? We put a lot of focus on our goal, but helping someone else reach their goals. And that's what it's always been about to me. And that's still what it's about today, finding out what someone else is wanting to help them being able to go out and get it. Of course, you may ask a few more questions, but that just gives a general. And here's what I'm going to share with you, everyone. It's crazy as it's going to sound. When I qualified for the ring, I didn't even know that I really didn't know. I wasn't the one that had it down to, I need $3.18 and 40. I didn't have it down like that. I remember sitting on my porch, during this time, and the doorbell rings, it's UPS, and they used to deliver these little ring earner thing to you that you have to try your ring size on. And when I open up this little package, I'm like, what does UPS bring me? It was a note from Mr. Stone Cipher congratulating me on being a 6-figure ringer, and it was the ring size thing. You had to do your ring size. That's how I found out. I really didn't have it down to. Now, I probably should have tracked it like that, but I didn't track it like that.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So, Mr. Muhammad, what would you say was your biggest challenge in Legal Shield? I guess during that time or any time, what do you say is your biggest challenge? And then also, what do you say is your biggest success?
Biggest challenge, there's an old saying, leader of one or leader of many. If you can't lead one, then you can't lead any. My biggest challenge is just making sure that I lead myself. John Maxwell does all this leadership development stuff, but he said the hardest person to lead is yourself. And so the biggest challenge has been overcoming, it's crazy as this is going to sound, sometimes overcoming overcoming uncomfortable feelings, overcoming sometimes confidence issues, even overcoming sometimes worrying about what people are going to think and approval and all of that. So at different levels, you still deal with those kind of things. You know what I'm saying? Just trust me. Or at least some people do. I'm not going to say I want to put that on everybody. No, that was probably the biggest challenge. And you said, what was the other part? The biggest
success. What's your biggest success, you believe?
The biggest success, it's going to sound crazy, but the biggest success is I started this because coming from a single parent household, I wanted to just prove that even though my formal education goes through high school, because I got married very young the first time around, I wanted to be able to prove that I could develop not just any kind of income, but to be able to develop a 6-figure income. So my biggest success for me was when I first developed a 6-figure income.
Wow. Okay.
And it wasn't just for income. It was, again, growing up in the kind of household and having the kind of education, I thought I was always going to be stuck to $30,000 a year jobs, that type thing. And so getting introduced to industry just changed all of that. And especially when I found out that I could do it too. That was the biggest success.
Let me ask you this. So, okay, so this is a major one for me, right? So you're working this job at, as a call in the call center, et cetera. You have this opportunity. You're doing what you have to do to kind of make it work. Not making excuses, and you're working on the personal development, creating this executive director team. It's a year later. When did you make that decision? Okay, now it's time to leave my job and do this full time. And I'm just going to be real. Was it a scary decision, right? And how did you get over the fear of, I have to kill what I eat kind of philosophy, right? I mean, if you don't work, you don't eat kind of thing. How did you deal with all of that?
Often when I'm sharing my story, I mentioned that the first 6 months, I began to earn more part-time with Legal Shield than I was earning full-time working for the phone company. And I fired them before they could ever fire me. No, but here's the part. Most people don't catch that. I said, actually, they were in a position of probably getting ready to fire me because I was, I didn't know what I was doing anymore. I was coming in a little bit late. So I left before any of that could ever happen. Was it scary? Yes, it was a little scary. Now, my story's a little different. I love to be able to say I went full-time and everything went great and income just kept going up. No, my income went down when I went full-time because I realized I wasn't disciplined enough at the time. I remember one of the times, I'd never forget this, when I first went full-time, I was about to leave a house and go to get a couple of appointments and just try to meet some people. And it just so happens that Eddie Murphy Marathon was on that day. And I remember watching 48 Hours and I said, okay, I'm gonna leave after 40 hours over with. Then another 40 hours came on, then Trading Play. In other words, I lost that whole day. See, I wasn't disciplined. My income kind of went down for a couple of months and I went through some very challenging times. But then once I got it back together, I left the phone company. I started in September of 1998. I left by the time May came around, early May of 1999. I left a little early, went through a couple of little challenges, but by May 2000, I had my first 5-figure month because my income did go down, but I was able to do some things to get it back on track again. But to answer your question, no, for me, it didn't just go great once I went full time because I wasn't disciplined enough. I had to kind of really work on some things with that. And when I'm working with the team now, sometimes people go full time too early. One of my mentors taught me this, and I'll just share this. And everyone's different. Follow their own philosophies from your own team. Yeah, people follow their own philosophies from their own team. But I've got people now that come to me and say, hey, look, when is a good time to go full time? I say, well, hey, look, if you can while you're working right now, if you can, for the next 6 months, don't touch your Legal Shield money. I mean, don't touch it at all. Pardon me, don't touch your job money at all. And for the next 6 months, if your Legal Shield money can pay all your bills and you have some savings, left over, if you're able to do that, you do that for 6 months without touching your job income, then you're probably ready to go full time, but in a lot of instances, it's not always necessary. Yes, I did it. And I'm not going to say I did it too soon. I'm just saying not everyone can handle that pressure. So it was some pressure there, but it was something that I knew that I wanted to do. And I knew I could be successful because I was around too many other people that had already done it and proved that it could be
done. Okay. So I love talking to you because it's like you're talking to me. And you are talking to me. So, Mr. Muhammad, let me ask you this. You've built a long-term business. And a lot of times in this industry, you see people, they're in, they're out. You see them today, you don't see them tomorrow. You made a career out of helping people get access to the justice system and giving people, opportunities towards freedom with this business, right? So, what are the keys to building a long-term business like that? A business that can last? Because I think there's a large testament to that, right? I mean, some people get this, popcorn success. And everybody gets accolade, don't see him anymore. But Mr. Muhammad, you've been here, you've been doing it. How do you build that long-term business that continues to, pay your family for years to come like that? What are some of those keys?
Well, some of the things is just once you recognize, like for me, from the very first time I saw Legal Shield, and just being quite honest, I like the mission of the company. I like what the company was about. I've got friends that's been in this and been in that, and Ocean's Post. Not, in case someone looking at this, not necessarily putting that stuff down, but I was proud of what Legal Shield was, the kind of company it was. I believed in Legal Shield. But you really want to know something else? I believed in Mr. Stonecipher. When I went to my very first convention and hearing Mr. Stonecipher talk, even hearing him talk, and mention spiritual things and scripture, which that's not something you normally mix in quote unquote business environments. So I really felt like the company was full of integrity. And the leader, the support team that I had, all of them hung around too and built successful businesses. So it really made it kind of easy to build a home here. Now,
Okay.
even though just like everyone else, I've had people in the team that some still with me, some I've had leave, I've had ring earners, all of that, the whole 9 yards. But for me, I just believed that Legal Shield was the best company in this industry. And because I believed that, I didn't really desire to want to go anywhere else.
Okay, so that was your faith in the company. Okay, that makes good sense. I could see why that would make a
And
difference.
it helped, it helped to earn 6 figures the first 2 years and a few months too. It did help. Because I had never earned that kind of money in my life before. I ain't gonna say that didn't help. That did help.
Okay. Well, let me ask you, who's your Legal Shield hero? Who's your Legal Shield hero?
Crazy this gonna sound, Mr. Stonecipher.
I like it. Why does that sound crazy? I think that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Well, because some of the newer people might not know Mr. Stonecipher is, but just to see the American story and the prepaid legal story I got over here on the shelf. I mean, it's just seeing what he's done, and because we wouldn't have this opportunity if it wasn't for what Mr. Stonecipher and Mrs. Stonecipher did, the sacrifices they made. So that's definitely a Legal Shield hero. Now, there's some other, this in my mind just right now, 2, 3 other people just came up, that I really am motivated by in this business. But if I had to just look at one, it would be the founder, president, the one that started it all, Mr. Stonecipher.
I like it. I give you another one here. If you had to pick two keys, just two keys that you could name quickly for what a good business has when you're looking at a brand new associate, what are those two things?
A real desire to succeed. In other words, nothing's going to stop them. And consistently consistent, not just consistent, but consistently consistent. Those two qualities to me, a desire to succeed and being consistently consistent. Those are two things that I would just say is important. Yes, coachability is definitely key too. But the reason why I'm mentioning those two, because if the desire is there and the person's going to be consistent in whatever they're being shared with, they're eventually going to have success. Now, so I would mention those two. If I had to limit it to, there's some other ones I could think of, but if I had to limit it to two, those are the two I'd say.
And my next question is 45 days left roughly in the year. Are you still charging towards a major goal? And if so, what is that?
Yeah, you know what? I'm glad you mentioned that because quite frankly, there was probably about a good 5 or 6 year period in my legalship business. I was still at every event, all the meetings and all of that kind of stuff. But I wasn't necessarily just driving to build. And about maybe a year, and I say maybe it's been about 2.5 years now, just been really personally focused. Like last month, I had more Performance Club points than I've had in a long time, a long time. A certain amount of, some people do this all the time, but, I have 4 personal recruits, just focus. So the fact that I am driving towards a personal goal, I was platinum some time ago, and haven't been that in a long time. So my goal right now is driving back towards platinum. It's work, it's work involved, but it's a good work because some people on this Zoom are driving towards executive director or driving towards senior director or whatever. So that's the goal that I am focused on before the end of the year is creating, the executive director list that I'll need to be able to requalify back to platinum since it was such a while since I've done it.
So I want to say one last thing. Do you have any final words for us before we close up here in the interview for the people that are watching all over the state of Florida?
Yes. First comes the will, then comes the skill. First comes the will, then comes the skill. So many of us get impatient. We want microwave success. We want it right now. We want it right now. We want it right now because we see somebody else that got it right now. Or we see somebody else that did this to see that. Everybody's different. We're not in a competition with anyone except for ourselves. That don't mean we shouldn't do the best we can do. But that would be the thing. And I would say is that, hey, first comes the will, then comes the skill. And just make sure we know that we're giving our best at whatever it is that we're doing. And I'll just close on this GPA because some people in school right now, some people back in school, GPA. So like I got a teenager now. I got 2 adult children, but I have a teenager. So GPA through remarrying a few years ago. So when I'm talking to the team, I ask them, what's the GPA? So I will leave everyone asking you, everyone, what's your GPA? And GPA, what I'm talking about though, what's your goal? That's the G. What's your plan? And that plan should be by someone that knows how to help you get whatever that plan is, because that means they've done it before. And then the A in that is, what are the action steps, the income producing activities, action/accountability. So when I'm reading with someone, talking to someone, they know if they're working a part of my organization, we talk about the GPA. Hey, what's your GPA? And we talking about the goal, we're talking about the plan, or put together plan. We got the action steps to back up the plan, and we got accountability, which is our constant communication to help make that goal become a reality.
Mr. Muhammad, it has been as they say, a plum pleasing pleasure to be interviewing you today. Ladies and gentlemen, As always, on Monday night, we've had another interview with a successful individual that has given us so many keys and facts. And that's it on Interview with Success. Back to you, Mr. Gonzalez.
And last but not least, make sure that you subscribe to our Legal Shield Florida State YouTube channel. Just click the link below, subscribe now, so you always catch the latest and greatest that Florida's putting out. Have a blessed day, everybody.